For this tutorial, we'll be evaluating a periodical resource using the evaluation criteria that we used in the previous tutorials and applying them towards an actual evaluation process. For this tutorial and the next two tutorials, we'll be using the example research topic, Religion and Communist China, and that will be the topic we'll keep going back to when we look for our resources. So first, let's go to Academic Search Complete to find a periodical. We'll start with here. Okay, and we know that our topic is Religion and Communist China. So our keywords here will be religion and China and communism or communist. I'm going to put a truncation mark at the end of communist so we get both communist and communists. And I'm going to search. And here are our results. We have 302 results, and I'm going to just limit it to academic journals since we would preferably want a scholarly resource. And this one looks good. Religion in China under Communism, a shortage economy explanation. So why don't we go into it and begin our evaluation. Now if you remember, our first evaluation criteria is availability. For articles, one thing to always keep an eye out for is to see if there's a PDF full text. And in the case of this article, there is. There is a PDF full text. So we know that this article is available. Our next criteria is authority and credibility. Is the author an authoritative source? Is the publisher an authority? Well, we know the author already. It says up here. Feng Gong Yang appears to be the author of this article, and it's in the publication Journal of Church and State. As mentioned before, you can click on the journal title name to get a little description about it. And it looks like the publisher of it is Oxford University Press. And they're a pretty reputable institution. So the publisher at least seems to be reputable. However, we are unsure of the author. So let's go back and search for this author. I'm going to copy and paste his name, open a new tab, and search for him. There's a result here for Purdue.edu, so I'm going to click on it. And this person has the same name. And if you look under his specialization, it says religious change in China. And that relates to the topic. So there's a good chance that this is our author. So we know that the author is an authority on the topic since he is a professor and he specializes in the topic we are talking about. And the publisher is also reputable. So on the authority and credibility side of this evaluation, this article checks out. But there is still more criteria to look at. So let's go back to the article. Next, we are going to look at the purpose and bias of the article. So what is the purpose of this article? Is it to inform, to entertain, to persuade? What is the purpose? Well, let's take a look at the abstract to get an idea. The article discusses the nature of religion in China under the communist regime, with particular focus given to attempts to suppress and eradicate religious practice in the nation. Efforts of the Chinese government to restrict and regulate religious practices are examined, and replacements for religious groups, including political groups and personality cults, are explored. The politics of religion, the nature of religious economies, and the nature of supply and demand applied to regulated religions are discussed. The shortage economy of religion in China and its relation to state-sanctioned atheism is also explored. So judging from that abstract, we can guess that the purpose of this article is to inform, not entertain or persuade. Now let's take a look at the article itself to see if it is biased. So we're going to jump into the article. We're not going to actually read the article, but we're going to just take a quick look to see if it is biased just from any red flags like use of font or color or images. And just from right here we can see that the font is pretty neutral. It uses bold for the title, but the language is pretty neutral. And let's take a look at the other pages real quick. And as we can see, the font seems pretty consistent. It is not trying to draw any attention to anything special. The subheading is in line with the rest of it and is neutral in tone. Let's see if we can find an image real quick. And here is an image. Now, as we can see, it is pretty sparse and neutral in tone as well. The color is just black and white, and the wording is pretty neutral as well. So we could probably guess just from a quick glance that it is probably not biased, but to be completely sure, we're going to have to read it. But just from a quick glance, it doesn't appear to be biased. So let's go back to the top of the article. And let's take a look at the next evaluation criteria, accuracy and reliability. The first step in judging the accuracy or reliability of an article is to see if it is scholarly or not. And one of the first ways we can do that is to see if the author is an authority in the topic. And we already know that from a previous step that the author probably knows what he is talking about, judging from his credentials. Another criteria is to look at the article's length. Scholarly articles tend to be longer, and as we can see from here at the top, the article is 32 pages in length. So that is pretty much in line with a lot of other scholarly articles. They tend to be around 20 to 30 pages, or even longer, or sometimes shorter too. So 30 pages is pretty in line with other scholarly articles. The next criteria we want to look at is references. And as we can see, the author has references just from this first page, since the footnotes refers back to the text, and then in the footnotes themselves it shows where the author has gotten that information. And if we continue on to the next page, we can see that they continue. So it is likely that the author has done their research and knows what they're talking about in terms of the topic. The next step is to look at the format of the article. And as we can see, the article appears to follow a similar format, similar font, similar way it is laid out, and the footnotes are always in the same place. So the article seems to follow a pretty standard format, which is in line with other scholarly articles. If you lay 2 pages of this article side by side, they will probably look identical, at least in how they are laid out. You cannot say the same thing for popular articles because they tend to have more images and the color changes and there are ads. So this format of this article appears to be in line with other scholarly articles. Next, let's take a look and see if there are any illustrations. And we know that from the previous step that there is. So let's just see about judging it in terms of scholarliness. I'm going to scroll a little faster, and here's our image from before, and as you can see, it is pretty sparse, as mentioned before, and it doesn't appear to be drawing the eye as much. It appears to be more about informing. Even though there's an image of a house, it's in black and white, and it doesn't look very appealing, at least from an aesthetic point. So the point of this image is probably to inform, as opposed to entertaining, which is more in line with a popular resource. So just judging from this, it is more in line with scholarly articles. Now the rest of the criteria, including language and the audience, you'll have to get by reading it. But just taking a look at these criteria here, we could probably guess that this article is in fact scholarly. So we're going to just say that the article is scholarly for right now, but if we wanted to be absolutely sure, we would have to read it and look at the other criteria to see if the rest of the article falls in line with the rest of the scholarly criteria. This concludes part 1 of this tutorial. In the next part, we will discuss the article in terms of coverage, currency, and appropriateness.